Okay, so we have not done a Socratic seminar before, but I know a lot of you have in previous classes, but this one might be a little bit different because we're really going to follow kind of the traditional rules for Socratic discussions. And some of this we talked about in class yesterday, but I'll remind you of it, we'll repeat it. And so Socrates developed a method of discussion which he called discourse, not debate. Okay, and we talked about this yesterday in class a little bit, right? Our purpose here is not to convince anybody of something and change their mind. It's just to have a scholarly exchange of ideas. And then you come away more learned as a result of that, right? Considering other people's point of view. Doesn't mean you change your opinion. It just means that you have opened yourself up to other perspectives. So that's what we're going for here, discourse. Okay? And of course, the purpose of the entrance ticket in order to participate is so that way you have done some pre-thinking. Okay, we're not here as a free-for-all. We're here with people who have actual things to say, and we've prepped for that. Okay, and that's what the entrance ticket is for. So you can pull information in from things that you have looked at prior to. Now, in front of you, inner circle, you have an observation checklist. Okay, it's two-sided. Okay, so you're going to write your name on one side, and then you're going to give it to the outer circle, who we're going to call your coach. Okay, that's your coach sitting behind you. Put your name on it and then give it to your coach. It's going to be your coach's responsibility to critique you as you participate. Now, your coach will then put his or her name on the other side, and you'll get this back when you move to the outer circle, and you'll critique your coach. Now, he's inner circle, you're outer circle. Okay, does everybody see how that works? So fill your name in, give it to your coach. Now, if you're in the outer circle, you cannot speak. Okay, if there's something that you're like, oh my gosh, totally wish I could say something right now, number one, you can't. But number two, write it down and say it when it's your turn to be in the inner circle. Okay, but you cannot speak. You can't talk to each other. Your sole focus is on the person you're going to coach if you're in the outer circle. Okay, just like Matt, just like that. Okay, now the other thing you have in front of you is the self-assessment. Now here's why we're doing that. So your coach is going to assess you, and I have my pink clipboard, so I'm going to be charting when you speak. So that means I'm giving you something, your coach is giving you something, but you haven't talked to yourself about how did I do. So that's why a self-assessment's important. It's probably actually one of the most important things in a seminar because it gives you a chance to reflect on your own participation, your own learning. Where am I awesome? Where could I be a little bit better? Okay? Now, this is all honest to goodness feedback. That grade you give yourself is not going in any Assembler. Ultimately, you know, I win. My stuff goes in. However, you're going to really think about what you did and how you can improve your performance next time. Okay? So you have two of these in front of you. Give one of them to your coach, and one you'll keep. Obviously, you can't fill that out until your time in the inner circle is over. Okay. So how will the seminar work? The seminar will start out with the inner circle speaking, and roughly 8 minutes, maybe 9 minutes. Then I'll call like a 1-minute coaching break, okay? And then you'll turn around and you and your coach will talk about anything that needs talking about, okay? About a minute. Then you'll come back in for about 5 more minutes to either adjust what you've been doing, up your game a little bit if you've been kind of silent, or quiet it up if you've monopolized the conversation, all right? And then we will switch and we will go through the same process all over again. Okay? That's how we're going to do it. Now, ideally, it's not going to be me up here talking. I mean, where I'd like to sit is over here and just observe quietly. So ideally, you guys will lead the discussion. This is the first time we're doing it, so I may need to prompt and nudge you a little bit just to kind of get you talking. But once it starts, you want to just feed off of each other. You don't have to stare and look at me. Look at each other. If a partner says something that you find intriguing, you say, that's interesting. Explain, or let me explain, or I want to add to. Or it's just like in chapter 2 of Frankenstein. Okay? Or this reminds me of Henry Higgins and Pygmalion. Okay? So anything's fair game. You're not talking in a way that you think I want to hear. You're talking a true scholarly discourse here. You might come out and say, you know, I hate Frankenstein. Okay? Totally fair game. Okay? Any questions about how we'll run it? I'll be the timekeeper. Now, you have the stuff in front of you, and you're supposed to be building on that, pulling things in. But remember, the whole purpose of our seminar is really to discuss what? Frankenstein, right. Really to discuss Frankenstein. All of this stuff supports some of the thematic elements that we've been talking about, that we've hit on as we've read George Bernard Shaw's play. Also, over the summer and first quarter when we read Oryx and Crake by Atwood, a lot of that applies too. This is a great way to just kind of put all that together and make a whole bunch of great connections. So, any questions for me before we get started? Anything? Okay, so let me sit down here. All right, so the first thing I asked you to do on your seminar, let me get this out, on your seminar entrance ticket is I asked you to find 2 articles on genetic engineering, mark them up for what was the claim, what's the supporting details, what were the things that they talked about there, and then I wanted you to discuss how you felt about it. What was weird? What unsettles you about this? Where do you think it's a good thing for society? And of course, all of that in relationship to Frankenstein. So we're reading up to chapter 7, and so spoiler alerts, everything is fair game up till chapter 7. Okay? So hopefully you have all read up to there. Anything after 7 we don't discuss today. We'll discuss at our next seminar. Okay? So everything's fair game. So I'm just going to start out just throwing a question out there for you guys. Impressions so far. I'd like to hear what your impressions are of Victor. I'd like to hear you make some connections to Romanticism and the Enlightenment. Okay? Okay. Take it away, scholars.
Well, so far, Victor has flipped back and forth between Enlightenment and Romanticism. I feel like every time that he gets really into the Enlightenment, he looks back on it and says, what am I doing? Oh my gosh, I've just created a monster.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel bad about it, and that's the Romanticism part.
Yeah, it was like instant. As soon as he did the science part of it was over, when he was creating the creature, it was like instantly he switched to like feelings and emotions of like fear and guilt and whatnot. And it was like the science part of it was over with.
So even though he puts on the charade of he's enlightened, he deep down truly feels romantic. And
And then like afterwards, when his friend Henry came back, he spent a long time like studying like languages and stuff with Henry.
Yeah.
And he talked about how he wasn't like as into it as Henry was, because Henry is like straight up like, romanticism. But Victor, like, I feel like he kind of used that as an escape to like forget about everything that he did.
Yeah, he definitely has a problem with responsibility. Because it's like he spent like years and years creating this monster, and as soon as it's like done, he leaves the house. I was like, are you kidding me?
It's very dramatic too. It opened its eyes and he just ran away and was like, oh my god, it's gonna kill me and everything is ruined. And he's like, he must have killed my brother. It had to have been him.
Know.
I just know that I've done this, and yet he doesn't want to take responsibility and actually fix anything.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's kind of ironic because when he was making the monster, he was like talking about, this new creature is gonna worship me, like father makes a child, I'm more than a father to this thing. I'll be like a god to it.
Yeah, didn't he want to make the creature for like praise and and so he could like be praised and honored in the science community?
He's like, I don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah, exactly.
He doesn't want anything to do with it too, because it's not like to his like liking, like it's ugly, like he doesn't like the way it looks.
Yeah,
that's why
but he made it.
Yeah,
So it's like,
he wanted to be a father figure, and now he's a terrible father figure.
Yeah, basically.
Well, one of the articles that I read was actually really recent, and in the UK, they're this close to passing a law making a baby out of 3 people.
I read that one.
That scares me, because I feel like it's going to be just like Frankenstein, and one of these 3 people is going to be like, no, bye, and now you have a mutant person. In the gene pool could be messed up.
But it wasn't a mutant person. They got rid of the
They
were getting rid of mitochondrial viruses.
Yeah, but I don't understand why you would need to make a baby out of 3 people, because it's not like really going to be yours. You could just adopt a baby. Like, it doesn't make sense. Why bring 3 people when you can help something by adopting a baby? It just doesn't
Because
make
it's
sense.
fun to experiment and mess around with.
Here we go. That's like you're like playing with fire at that point.
Yeah.
Like you're messing with like things that we don't know completely all about. You know
Playing
what I
with
mean?
fire got us pretty far so far.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess, but
Pushing the boundaries is
we
what
are
helps us
pushing the boundaries.
There haven't been any real trials at this. They're just like, we're going to do it now. And
Whatever.
the UK is saying, it's for women who have mitochondrial like disorders, so their kid's going to die anyway. Well, if you have that disorder, maybe you should just not try to have kids. Maybe that's the answer.
I read an article and it was talking about how like scientists were looking at the embryos, and like if they saw early onset diseases, they would implant new genes so that.
Yeah, I think I read that same article. Yeah, and it's talking about a little bit like designer babies apparently.
Yes. Yeah.
That's like a term.
We've touched on that in class. Have we touched on that?
Yeah, and it's like that creeps me out a little bit.
It reminds me of Orcs and Creeks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's all I can
Creating,
think
like,
about.
perfect human race
Breakers.
kind of thing.
Yeah, it's all I could think about. And it's like they were talking about how you could like see different traits of the baby beforehand and like behavioral traits as well. Like they're like getting to that point where they're trying to like notice that. But then they're saying like if you can notice like a negative behavior in someone like before they're born, that could like cause problems in different like ethnic situations. Because what if they're like more prominent in certain ethnic situations? Then that's going to cause like, you know, problems, you know what I mean? When you're like, oh, I don't want a baby with that behavior. That's saying you don't want a baby in that, like, you know what I mean? That's what this article was talking about. Like, it becomes like a cultural thing, not just about sciences anymore.
Yeah, I feel like the line is going to get blurred with like the whole 3-parent thing.
Yeah.
Because like, as of right now, they're saying, oh, to save like babies that are going to have these diseases, but eventually it might turn into like, oh, well, my child is going to have this disability, which could cause them to be disadvantaged. And so then it's like, where do you draw the line? You know?
Yeah, I feel like that it's just gonna crumble in their face if they do it, because it's not smart.
It's just hard to have like regulation on it because like,
Right.
I guess because it's still so new, like it's not even really like a thing yet.
Mm-hmm.
It's just hard to think of it as like, how do we even like regulate this or restrict it or make it so it's like still like civilized and
They
like.
have no regulations at all.
And it's advancing so
Yeah.
quickly. And like with the mitochondrial thing, I feel like that idea is going to get so perverted later when they try to, they're like, oh, well, they're going to have a virus anyway,
Yeah.
so I might as well change this. And while I'm at it, I might as well continue during this, and it will escalate into something that
Like,
it was not meant
designing-
to.
exactly.
Like,
It's something
design
that is
children.
Yeah, like it becomes something that it wasn't supposed to be in the first place, and it just gets blown out of proportion. And by
So
that,
now there's no way to stop
and
it.
then by that point, there's no like controlling it anymore.
Yeah, my article actually said that they were scared that this could turn into designer babies.
Yeah, yeah. So
And even with good intentions, I mean, Victor technically has good intentions. He's just trying to progress science, but look how that turned out. He didn't do a very good job.
Yeah.
He just abandoned it. And even if you have the intention of making a baby that will live a nice, healthy life, what are you going to do to that baby? And you're really only helping at max 3 people, the parents who couldn't have a kid and the kid. When you could be mutating that kid reproduces with other people, ruins everything, and now you're affecting the whole globe.
Yeah.
It's going to
What, 3
spiral out of
people?
control and lead to even more problems than they think it's going to help. It's just going to make things worse and more complicated than it needs to be.
I want to interrupt here because I'm stuck on a comment that you made, Emily, when you said, I'll be more than a father to this creature. I will be a god. Explain.
Because like in the book, like father figures, I guess, because you know the father, the parents bring the child into the world, you know, and so he's thinking like, I'm not just putting like my genes into you, I am making you from scratch. So he's like, so then like how I owe my father, this creature is going to owe me a lot more than what I owe my parents. So he's thinking that he deserves to be like worshipped, like pretty much like a god. You know, he's like, I feel like he makes it, for scientific advancement, but for selfish reasons.
It's kind of like Henry Higgins in Pygmalion. He transformed Eliza just for his own self-gratification.
Yeah.
He made a challenge to himself.
Yeah.
He was like, can I do this? He even made a bet to it.
Yeah.
And then she found out, and that's why it got blown out of proportion.
And she didn't worship him.
And
at
she
all.
didn't.
She threw a shoe at him.
Yeah, Eliza did not worship him.
He had it coming.
And she didn't really ask for that either. She just wanted lessons from him, and he took it and made it something else, just like the creature didn't ask to be brought into the world. And then neither Victor or Henry Higgins took responsibility for the creature that they created, who didn't even ask to be here in the first
Yeah.
place.
And what
Exactly.
happens when those babies with 3 parents, they didn't ask for that? Maybe
She's stuck on those 3 parents.
She don't like those babies with the 3 parents.
But no babies asked to be brought into
That's
the
the
world.
future, because what if you start messing with these kids and, you know, if you have anger management, maybe that's something in your life that if you work to fix your anger management, then all of a sudden you're, you know, in a better place and you live a happy life and now you've affected other people. But if you just snap that out and you never have that chance to make yourself better, then what's the point?
Yeah, I feel like when people realize that, oh, I can have these problems with me and they can be fixed later with my child or whatever, I don't have to work on myself anymore. And then I think it's going to decline from there because people are going to be like, oh, I need to worry about going to anger management or taking care of myself, like health-wise and stuff, because why not? I mean, it's going to be fixed later. Why do I have to worry about myself?
Is that a scary thought?
Yeah, because...
What will society come to?
Yeah.
Like, are we just going to decline from here if we continue with this?
In Oryx and Crake, what did society come to?
Nothing.
Snowman.
Isn't that the whole point of life, to like fix, like work on yourself? If you don't have to work on yourself, then what are you doing?
We're just depending on sciences and chemicals and whatnot.
Who remembers what the subtitle of Frankenstein was? Anybody?
A modern day Prometheus.
Yeah, okay. What does that mean about this whole idea of playing God, which I'm stuck on, I guess, a little bit? Because I think that there's something really valuable for us to discuss there. How does that subtitle relate to what Emily said and what you guys have said about crossing a line and when is too much enough? And just because we can doesn't mean we should. What do you think?
Because Prometheus gave fire to humans and the gods got really upset because they said that's not your job. And in genetic engineering, people are getting upset because that's not our job. And then in Frankenstein, that is nowhere in the job description.
No one told you to do
your
that.
responsibility to just create someone out of dead things.
Out of parts.
Have the means to prevent certain diseases, why not take those measures?
That's where I am.
That's where
I know you're on this side of it.
I think I'm more like, if it's an organ, create an artificial organ so that someone doesn't have to donate, but I don't like creating organisms.
You mean like the pigoon?
Yeah, like you don't have to create an entirely new organism, but if you can modify bacteria in your gut, or if you can like make a new organ for someone with their own personal cells, then you're helping them without like completely changing it.
That's what I was talking about earlier with like the regulations and the restrictions. Like there's really none right now because it's so brand new. So
Feels like the wild, wild west.
yeah, like it just
Time out, coaching break. Talk to your partner for about a minute.
Hello, dude.
And
But I like how
get in
I really like the Socratic seminar because when you sit on the outside and you can't contribute, you're forced to listen to everyone else and form your own opinions based on purely the text and the ideas in support of others. But when you're on the inside, then you get to think and make connections and draw from the text and relate all the things that we're learning and reading about in AP literature. And we're connecting all these different books. So when the AP exam happens, we're going to be able to write about it and just immediately think of all these things.
And not everyone is like me or Selena, where we just are like really want to talk like the whole time and super engaged. Like for even the people who kind of want to sit back and are a little more quiet, the Socratic seminars even work for them because they hear other people's opinions and so many different opinions that they can create their own, even if it's, you know, introverted and, you know, they keep it to themselves. At least they hear other people's thoughts and takes on the books that we're reading.
And those shy people, when they're in the inner circle, they're forced to talk.
Yeah.
And that gets them ready for when they have to write an argumentative essay or when they have to provide support in an essay. So I really think it'll work not just for AP classes. It works not even in English. You could talk about social studies.
Anything.
Yeah, because it's more structured than a debate. Because when you have a debate, people get upset. And they're like, no, I'm right. And when you have a Socratic discussion, then you're like, oh, I see your point, but I think this. And it's more calm.
Yeah, and even, go ahead, sorry. What was I gonna say? Even though it's like more calm and everything, and I love it when I have an opinion on something and then someone like says something back and I'm like, wait a minute, and I have to rethink what I said and check what I said. I'm like, it makes me think, you know, because you hear other people's takes on it and they could have like completely refute what you just said.
Yeah, it's a self-evaluation because not only are you having to think about, well, this person thinks this, you're having to think, why do they think that? I think that they're right in a way, and then your view changes and you're more experienced in the world and you're not just blinded by your
you're not just one answer, one opinion. You have millions of opinions, or you can at least, when someone has an opinion, you're like, oh yeah, I know where you're coming from. You understand it better.